All right. Welcome to our hardworking, our amazing, supportive, and passionate community. I'm your tonal coach, Kendall Wood, your very good friend, Woody, and I'm going to be the host of today's Tonal Talk. It is member month here at Tonal, and all month long, we've been celebrating our members, you guys, from overcoming obstacles to stacking wins, progressing in your fitness journeys, and becoming more connected with each other. There is truly no shortage of reasons to be celebrating you all, not just this month, but every single month. So continuing the celebrations, today's Tonal Talk is all about recovery. It is a very hot and trending topic in the fitness industry and also within our community. And while we know that recovery is crucial to driving adaptation and training, and it is a key element of our overall health, we want to know why. So joining me today, we have an all-star lineup, an all-female lineup of experts to help answer some of our most burning questions about exactly why we should prioritize recovery and the best ways to do so. So without further ado, here they are. Kristina Centenari is my friend and your tonal coach you know and love here in New York City. Casey specializes in mobility, recovery, and breath work as essential elements to our training routines on Tonal and beyond. After dealing with multiple injuries in her athletic history, Casey uncovered a true passion for the foundations of healthy movement and dedicated her career to teaching exactly that. We have Kelley Maple joining us. Kelley is a family nurse practitioner, chief medical officer, and co-founder of Fort Lauderdale Clinic Medical Anti-Aging, where she specializes in hormone replacement therapy and aesthetic medicine. Kelley joins us today as a member of the North American Menopause Society and Women's Health Ambassador for Gainful, the supplement brand. And of course, last but not least, we have Dr. Julia Morgan, a sports chiropractor and fitness trainer based in Los Angeles. Julia specializes in rehabilitation, strength training, and recovery, shown through her virtual workout programs and community challenges. And Julia joins us today as an ambassador and expert from Hyperice, the wellness and recovery brand. Welcome, everybody. Very excited you are all here to impart your knowledge on us. Very excited to dive into it. We have so much to get through today, so we're going to get down to business. To kick off, I want to start high level just so that everyone here can be aligned, everyone listening can be aligned. And Casey, I'm coming to you first. I want to ask, what is recovery? What are some different types of recovery? Can we just level set on that?
Okay, thanks, Woody, passing the baton to me. Hello, everybody. Today's topic is one of my favorite topics, mostly because we are all pretty bad at it. And I know because I'm talking about myself too. Recovery, guys, is when your body rebuilds. So working out, whether it's lifting or running or whatever form of movement that applies a little bit of stress on your body, is meant to break your body down. And it's not actually when we get stronger. We get stronger when we recover, when we take breaks from those periodic stressors. So there are a couple types of, there are many forms of recovery, but today we're going to really be talking about like full rest days, full recovery days, and more active recovery days. Your active recovery days are sort of like those days where you're implementing lighter, low impact movement. It could be, swimming or biking. It's easy on the joints. You're just getting the blood flowing. And these are often helpful days after, big, heavy lifts if you're feeling sore. And full rest days are full rest days. So you might be just going for a walk that day, but these days are really pivotal to not only give your body a break, but your mind a break. We'll talk about overtraining a little bit. We'll talk about under recovering and overreaching a little bit throughout this. But those are the main points. You've got your full rest days and your active recovery days.
Gorgeous. Thank you for clarifying that for us. So in the massive umbrella of what recovery is and exactly what it can look like, we know that it can look like many things. There are so many buzzing modalities underneath this umbrella. It honestly seems like we get a new one every day, and it can kind of be overwhelming and give the impression that, like, if we're not investing in some combination of these modalities, we're not recovering right. We're not doing it right, or maybe we're falling behind. I mean, we've got contrast therapy, hot cold therapy, like saunas, ice baths, we see are super popular right now in the mainstream. We've got percussive therapy using tools like Hyperice or Hypervolt, compression therapy or massage, acupuncture, foam rolling, meditation, cupping. Like, it's vast. This is a vast topic, right? So one of our members, Stephen Spurgeon, mentioned red light therapy and questions its benefits and its efficacy. We have another friend, Amy Woodruff Herrick, who wants to know if one form of recovery is maybe better than another for specifically building muscle. So Dr. Julie, I'm coming to you. We want to know, how do we know which modality is right for us? And do my training goals dictate the modality that I choose?
Okay, I love this question. And also, Casey, I love everything that you said. And I hope we come back to a little bit of what you said. But I view recovery how I view training, which is what can I do and what do I enjoy? So what will I actually commit to? And what will I be able to give my body? So if I'm just like, oh, well, this athlete does this, so I should probably do this, but it doesn't feel good, I don't feel good after I do it, then like, don't do it, So there's basically recovery happens. Yes, we are building up the muscles in that recovery period. So any type of recovery that you could be giving your body is going to help with muscle building versus avoiding it, because you just can't build up the muscle without giving it the time it needs to repair, because all training does is break down the muscle tissue. So the best form of recovery to building muscle is whatever you're going to give your body on a pretty regular basis. I love, and I think the most underrated one is sleep. And I think a lot of people, and of course there's lots going on in people's lives, but if you can just add 30 minutes here, sleep is very, very important for recovery. I forget the other type of question, but that's my basic answer. Is the best form of recovery is whatever one you can commit to. I love all the Hyperice products. So like you let me put on those Normatec boots after a long run or after heavy lift so that I cannot be sore later on. Yes. Let me just sit there, press a button and do whatever else I need to do on my laptop and I'm game. So that's my very basic answer to that.
No, that's awesome. Not basic at all. I think that one of the biggest challenges for everyone when it comes to training is, establishing adherence. And it's like, what's going to help you and support you in committing and developing a regimen that works for you. So I love that answer of do the thing that you enjoy doing, do the thing that has the least friction, because you're going to keep coming back to it. So I think that is ace and very key. I want to come back to also sleep, you mentioned, which who doesn't love sleep? But it can be a problem for some of us. And we know that it does affect our recovery and it affects our hormones. So we're absolutely going to come back to that. Before I leave you, Julie, I wanted to ask you, like all of these different modalities that I mentioned, red light therapy, cupping, acupuncture, compression therapy, contrast therapy, whatever it may be, do all of these have different benefits? And if so, the second question that I had previously asked was, do my goals dictate the modality that I choose? Do all these recovery methods give us something different? Or do they all fall underneath like the same bottom? The bottom line is we're recovering. Again, choose the one that's best for you.
Right. So that was part of your question and I missed it.
Okay.
But yeah, so muscles, all a muscle can do is contract and relax. So we're typically going to be working on either a muscular level, trying to activate the mechanoreceptors to actually be, if they're in a contractile state, to be like, hey, relax. And that's from putting pressure on it in like percussive therapy or massage or something like that. Then I can work on the mechanoreceptors in like a blood vessel, so that if I'm putting stress on the blood vessel, well, now that's like, oh my gosh, okay, we're under stress. Let me release nitric oxide and other things to help clear, like relax the muscle, but also like improve blood flow, because what helps bring waste away, so our muscles produce waste when they're broken down. What helps take that away is blood flowing away from the area, and then all the nutrients and good things that feed the muscle flowing back in. So they're all kind of there to like just help the muscle repair. I don't think your goals dictate what kind you do. I think red light, personally, I love a red light. I think it's great for like cellular regeneration. I know a lot of people that even use it for like scar tissue, or like after surgery when they can't really exercise or do other things. So maybe they can't tolerate a lot of like manual therapy, or you're not about to use a hypervolt on it. So I love that for people that are really, really, really highly in pain, but they need to also help induce recovery. And I also love it as like a meditation. You turn on your red light, you can't move away from it. You're just like, and so that's also going to tap into like another form of recovery. What Casey was mentioning earlier, like the mental side of it is so important, especially a lot of us like exercise because we love it. So what do you mean I can't work out every single day? I feel so good. How is my mind going to like adapt to this? So I do love a red light for that aspect of recovery as well, and getting you to be like, oh, recovery is dope too. So I hope that answered it.
No, that was great. We're getting so many good nuggets here already. And you kind of gave me like the perfect segue into where I want to go next, speaking about stress and sleep and hormones and all of this. So I want to start by mentioning that one of our members, Greg Myers, wrote that it feels like his recovery needs fluctuate. And that's probably based on his training stimulus, right? But he's curious how to tell when and how much recovery is needed in any given week of training. And something that you just mentioned, Julia, is that training is stress on the body, right? So we know that no matter how we train or how we feel after training, training is a form of stress. And with that, any form of training in any given week, depending, no matter how you feel like your recovery needs fluctuate, we still need some sort of recovery, right? So Kelley, I'm coming to you because I want to get kind of like to the micro level here. And I'm hoping that you could talk to us about kind of the hormone response to stress, maybe specifically cortisol, and if there are any maybe gender differences as it pertains to cortisol and ways that we can kind of adapt our training based on that.
Yes, thank you. And absolutely, there are major gender differences in how our bodies respond and adapt to stress. And I really focus a lot on women's midlife health. And in that midlife space, what we see for women as hormone levels are just slowly declining, which is kind of the early perimenopause into the menopause transitions, we really, because of the declining estrogen, testosterone levels, our response to stress is not as robust as it was maybe in our 20s or early 30s. And so part of kind of honoring that part of our life is that we do have to adjust our recovery and adjust our rest to adapt for these changes in hormone fluctuations, right? Our bodies are built for adaptation. We have to be part of that adaptation. So that's how looking at the stress response. So I'll give you an example. I used to do really heavy HIIT training and high cardio intense training. And as I entered my late 30s, really my early 40s, I was struggling for recovery. And I knew something wasn't right. My body did not like what I was doing. I wasn't building muscle. I wasn't recovering well. Things were hurting. And I really had to take a full stop and look at what I was doing and where I was at in life and really adjust my entire routine. And something like Dr. Julia said about sleep, I had now really prioritized sleep. And it's something I talk a lot about, especially to my women in midlife. I prioritize strength training over high intensity training at this time in life. And so kind of understanding that our bodies are built for adaptation, but we have to contribute to that adaptation, right? And so for men, I think it's a little bit different because men's testosterone levels, especially fit and active men, tend to stay pretty steady until maybe a little bit, later in life, 50s, 60s. So for men, I feel like the adaptation might be a little easier for them. They still need the recovery, they still need the rest, but it's very different when we're talking female hormone, especially female hormone changes in midlife.
Amazing response. And it was actually, you got ahead of me because I wanted to address this massive phase of life. We have, our community is vast. We have members in all stages of life, and we often receive questions pertaining to the perimenopause and menopause phases, where, as you mentioned, so much is happening on a hormonal and physical level. One of those things being muscle atrophy, loss of muscle mass, loss of bone density, redistribution of fat, inflammation. And I know you mentioned that in this phase of life for you, you've kind of switched a little bit more into strength training away from HIIT, which I think is like, this is the general advice, right? For women in the perimenopause or menopause phase is like, start lifting heavier, fewer reps, heavier loads. I just want to double down on that. Is that the advice that you would give women in this phase, or what would be something specific that you would suggest for adapting your training regimen to this phase of life?
Absolutely. Strength training, strength training, strength training. We need to push, we need to pull, we need to lift heavy. Having something like a tonal in your home is amazing because you can make it work around your schedule and what works for you. But absolutely, my kind of pillars for women in midlife are strength training, recovery, nutrition, so increasing protein intake. Because of these changes in these hormones, and really not even the fluctuation, it's just kind of this gradual decline in estrogen and testosterone, we see metabolic shifts. So we tend to accumulate fat more in the abdomen, subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that we see, but also visceral fat. That's this fat that's inside wrapped around our organs that leads to insulin resistance. Down the line, can lead to diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So what we need to do is prioritize protein. We need to prioritize strength training and rest and recover well so that we can, again, be part of that adaptation and really improve metabolic flexibility. We have to work with these changes that are happening in our body. And when we do that, we can really offset some of those frustrating consequences and difficult physical changes that we see during midlife, and really, really set ourselves up for success down the line, because muscle protein synthesis, having adequate skeletal muscle tissue is absolutely paramount for bone health. And as we age, we know that bone health, especially for women through menopause and after menopause, is so important. 50% of women over the age of 50 will develop osteoporosis who are not on hormone therapy. I mean, bone loss happens exponentially after menopause due to the lack of estrogen. So if we can set ourselves up for success in midlife, it sets us up for success going on.
Wow. So much information there. And you touched on so many things that I actually want to come back to, including nutrition. We know this is a huge subject underneath this like recovery umbrella. But something that Dr. Julia mentioned also, and you mentioned, was sleep. So I want to just come back to that real quick before we move on. How does lack of sleep or lack of recovery affect our hormones? What can we do to combat that or adapt to that, kind of take control of this, piece of recovery if we're having trouble sleeping? Is there a trick to it?
So sleep in midlife is, especially for women, it's challenging. And that's because progesterone levels are declining. Progesterone works on our GABA receptors in our brain. It's our calming hormone. It helps with sleep. And that's one of the first hormones that we see decline in early perimenopause. So sometimes we need some help. We maybe need some progesterone, but even before that, sleep hygiene is crucial. So I talk to my patients about really setting up a sleep regimen, turning off your phone, getting away from screens, finding things that calm you, trying to have a consistent bedtime, a consistent routine. So sleep hygiene. Some people find that magnesium or little bits of melatonin help them to sleep. I also think that being well nourished during the day and well hydrated during the day is important, because if we are not well nourished, our bodies, we could have hunger signals that may be keeping us awake or waking us up in the middle of the night. So that's where that nutrition comes into play. And it's really just setting yourself up for success for sleep and having a sleep regimen. Sleep hygiene is what we call it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You mentioned that progesterone may be what you need, and I want to pivot kind of hard to something that you specialize in, which is hormone replacement therapy. This is kind of becoming, I'm seeing this more in the wellness space. I'm seeing more people talk about it. I'm seeing it become a little bit more normalized, if you will. And I'm curious, when does hormone replacement therapy become an option for someone, or when does that become kind of the direction that maybe, I should be looking?
Sure. So being a woman in midlife now, as opposed to 25 years ago, we have such an advantage, and we're so lucky because our mothers and our grandmothers have been suffering through this transition because of some really old and outdated information that we had from the Women's Health Initiative study years ago that took everyone off of hormones. So we're in a really good place of better understanding how critical hormones are for patients. So really the determination to see if that's something we need is symptoms. So we look at symptoms. Are you struggling for sleep? Are you feeling anxious? Are you not recovering well? And then we also look at blood work. I mean, that's important. Even though blood levels fluctuate a lot during perimenopause, it's still something I look at to get a baseline. But really, when it comes to hormones, we really treat symptoms because your body is speaking to you. And that is how we know potentially what it is that might be beneficial for you. So really, I have women I even see in the late 30s, frequently late 30s, definitely early 40s, that we might need to use a little bit of progesterone, sometimes cyclically throughout the last 2 weeks of the cycle at nighttime, and it can help with sleep. I use testosterone, female appropriate and female dose testosterone therapy for women can be a game changer during the perimenopause and menopause transition. When we get into estrogen therapy, that comes a little bit later toward the menopause transition when we're having symptoms, more what we call vasomotor symptoms, or things like hot flashes or really severe night sweats. Things like that is when we'll start talking about estrogen a little bit more, but progesterone and testosterone I frequently use during the perimenopause transition.
Okay. Super interesting, super valuable information for many of our members out there. So thank you for that, Kelley. Here at Tonal, we take a lot of pride in our programming. It's kind of like our bread and butter. It sets our members up for long-term success. We talked about adherence. Our programs drive adherence and adaptation through progressive overload, of course. And it's common for our members to transition from one 4-week program straight into another as they graduate from one phase of training to another. So our very good friend, Leah Stukov, wants to know how important are deload weeks and how often should we be taking them? So Kristina, this one's for you, my girl. How important are deload weeks? How often should we be taking them? And do factors like volume, intensity, or even your training split have an impact on whether or not you should be taking a deload week?
Yeah, great question, Leah. And I'm going to answer it as I answer so many of your questions, and I apologize in advance, but it really depends on so many things, which is why this is such a great question, because we can kind of deep dive. But in short, generally speaking, I will say that if your training age is sort of like, that middle to more advanced ground, you want to be thinking like every 5 to 6 weeks, I think, before you hit one of those deload weeks. If you're a little bit newer, like to training, it means that you're going to progress a lot faster. It also means that this newer stimulus is going to hit your body like more intensely. And so you might need to throw in those deload weeks a little bit more frequently. In terms of volume and intensity and frequency, these are totally dependent factors in, do I need to tone it down a notch for a week? Volume, as we know, is how much overall work that we're doing, right? So like how much cumulative stress you're putting on your body. Intensity is, how intense your workouts are, how heavy you're lifting, how fast you're moving, right? And the more intense those programs are, the more you'll tax your central nervous system, which, we'll get to nervous system, I'm sure, at the end here, Woody, because that is what I really geek out over. But when you tax your nervous system, you really got to start to listen to some of those body signals, and then maybe it's time for a deload week. And then training split. I know, Leah, this was a big part of your question, right? Training splits for me, I would highly recommend as a coach not getting too wrapped up in the details of training splits, because you see on like Instagram and social media these very like bro-y split approaches, which is great. I'm not saying it's bad, but it just makes it a little bit more complicated to understand when you need recovery. And I want to simplify recovery as much as possible. You are like accumulating stress on your body when you're moving. So whether you're working upper body or lower body, it's fatigue. It's adding up to fatigue. And just remember that your workout is 30 minutes to an hour of your day, right? So you have all of this other stuff going on in your day that also accumulates stress outside of the workout. So in terms of split, maybe think of it less as split and more as just like overall work. And again, when you kind of total up and listen to your body that way, you'll start to know the signs of like when you're feeling more tired than usual, waking up in the morning, when you're sort of plateauing in your workouts, when maybe getting to like the endocrine system, your mood is sort of like up and down more than usual, right? These are all signs from your body that it's time to scale it back a notch, maybe adjust some of the volume dials. The last thing I'll say is that your body is way smarter than your brain. So yeah, when it comes to like throwing in deload weeks, my biggest piece of advice is just keep it simple and listen to some of these signs that we've touched on in this discussion so far. But these volume dials of volume, intensity, and frequency can always be adjusted.
That was awesome. I'm taking mental and physical notes over here myself. So my biggest takeaways there, to reiterate for Leah and anyone else, is experience level may dictate, stick with the general guideline of every 4 to 6 weeks to give yourself that break, and always, always, always listen to the body signals that we're talking a lot about here today.
Exactly.
So like Leah, like many of us, another friend of ours, Tonal member Marla Gerber, finds recovery hard. Like it's more of a chore and she always needs to be doing something. And Marla, I can relate, okay? Sometimes it does feel like a chore. And again, like I mentioned previously, there are so many things to be considering now in the world of recovery and wellness. You're like, which one do I choose? Which one is right for me? As mentioned, it can feel really overwhelming. So to just kind of dial it back and maybe come back to the brain for a second, Kristina, I'm going to stick with you and ask you, do you have any tips on how to shift your mindset so that it doesn't feel like you're slacking or you're not doing enough on a recovery day?
I do. Great question, Marla. So my answer may or may not be helpful because it's totally like based off of my own personal experience, but I'll start it with this: is rest is productive. Like if you can get that like tattooed on your body, I am all for that. Rest is productive. When it comes to my own personal experience, and I've been sort of like across the board as like a higher level athlete to like just somebody who has way too much on their plate in real life, right? Like I have trained way too hard for too long and dealt with so many injuries to where, I let the voice that tells me I'm slacking overpower the voice that tells me I need this, like it's necessary. And I think that comes with, like anything else in life, like making mistakes, like, training too hard, feeling the fatigue, feeling maybe a little bit of like tweaks or like some chronic pain here and there. Like these are signs from your body that ultimately you want to listen to. And so what I do, Marla, is I tell myself, like, if I have a period of time where I know I need to be resting, but I feel like, I'm kind of slacking, I just tell myself not to be stupid. And honestly, it works. It works. And that may not be the most like scientific answer for you, but truly, I think that you do get to a point where you learn from your own mistakes so many times, to where we really understand the value of rest and recovery. And again, like, I think this is where understanding the whys are really important, because when you can fully acknowledge the fact that rest is actually where you get stronger and where you rebuild, I think you'll welcome the idea of it more. So you get better when you rest, and trust that.
Great. You mentioned a lot about body signals, taking rest when necessary, listening to your body, being able to have this like relationship with your body, this awareness and this understanding and this, it's a give and take, right? And I see a lot of comments in the community about feeling wiped out and lacking energy where they may have otherwise thought, oh, this workout should have energized me, right? But why am I feeling wiped out? And this happens particularly after high volume workouts. So I think our members are confused. Should I be feeling pretty fatigued and wiped out given that I just worked really hard? Or is this lack of energy not normal? Julie, I'm going to come to you to ask, is something like this, are symptoms like this, feelings like this, body signals like this, feeling wiped out and lacking energy, are these signs of overreaching or overtraining? And maybe you can level set for us by starting with, what is overtraining?
Yeah, I think overtraining is a lot of what Casey has mentioned. And just looking at the signs, I'm looking at if one workout is leaving you feeling depleted, but that doesn't happen often, that's okay to push your body to that level every once in a while. But if it's happening day in and day out, then your body's not having the time that it needs to regenerate. And I view recovery just like I view training, which is, I'm doing this because I want to be doing this until I'm 80 and 90 years old. So what can I be doing for my body today that's going to allow me to do it for a long period of time? So like, if you don't give your body rest, it's going to make you rest. You're going to get injured. You're going to get sick. Something's going to happen. And like Casey was saying earlier, your body is smarter than your brain. Your brain can play tricks on you. Your brain can be like, well, all of these other members are doing it, so I should be able to do it. And no. But you don't know what their work stress is like, what their relationship stress is like. All of those things build in to how your body's going to feel in and out of a workout. So high effort isn't the same necessarily as high intensity. So I have to like take all those things into consideration of, oh my gosh, I am working so hard, but it also might not be taxing my central nervous system like a really high intensity workout would be. So am I just exerting more effort because my body is actually needing the recovery? Am I constantly sore? Am I unable to get rid of some of this chronic pain and tightness that I'm feeling? All of those things are going to tell me if I actually need recovery, or if the workout was just like a banger and it got to me that day. But I do want to leave 80% of my workouts feeling better than I entered. So if it's like 80% of your workouts, you're feeling just completely wiped out, then maybe you do need to dial it back, focus a little bit on the recovery. And I do have a tip. Can I revisit one of the questions?
Please.
I want to make mobility and like recovery accessible to everybody and fitness, but it doesn't have to be, oh my goodness, I do not have time to sit down for a 60-minute mobility session. It can be, can I give myself 5 minutes of something today? And then that 5 minutes, you might go throughout the rest of your day, like, oh my God, that felt really good. And then you might give yourself 7 minutes the next day, or of whatever modality that you're choosing, right? If I want to sit and I'm like, binge watching my favorite show at night with just a hypervolt on my legs after an intense workout, so it's like micro dosing recovery is also really effective for people to just intro them to it if they have a resistance to it. It's like, let's just remove barriers of entry. How can we do that? You don't have to do all the things. Pick one thing, try it out for a little bit, super small doses. You might actually like it. If you're like still not vibing with it, then move to a different type of recovery. But you have to find something, and odds are there's something out there that you're going to really vibe with, and your body's going to thank you for it. So I don't know if I ended up answering all the questions, but I just went for it.
You did, and you gave us even more than we asked for. And I think that you should absolutely trademark the phrase microdosing recovery because it's legendary. Speaking of some of the symptoms that we might feel after a high effort or high intensity workout that caused a lot of stress on the body, you mentioned soreness. And we know that soreness is kind of a manifestation or a symptom of inflammation, right? Inflammation is one of the healing tactics of the body. So some level of inflammation is going to naturally occur following a strength training session. And I'm wondering if modalities like percussive therapy and using a hypervolt or compression therapy and massage are effective at reducing inflammation and expediting recovery. Are they actually expediting recovery, or, are they just alleviating some of that soreness? What's actually happening? And would we be just as well off taking a couple of Advil?
Oh, okay. No Advil. No Advil. Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay. Inflation isn't bad, right? I could go on and on about it, but I'm not going to, because inflammation, especially in a controlled environment, is what is going to bring, like I talked a little bit about blood flow, but like blood flow is what brings the good stuff in. So we need it. So that's why it's there, right? It's like our body actually like kind of does things really well. And we just might have to help it along a little bit. So I was training for a marathon last year, which cannot imagine doing right now, but I knew I'd trial and errored this enough where I knew if I went out for a long run and I came home and I put my Normatec boots on, and I was like, I didn't go all the way up because I just go like a 5 or 6 and I hit go for like 30 minutes. I would not be a sore the next day. If I didn't do that the next week, I was like, let me just see. Oh, sometimes you feel it later that day. So yes, I definitely think, I know that it helps. It's been proven to help with DOMS, right? Late onset muscle soreness. So yes, it is helping kind of just like speed up that recovery process, but it's not like you're skipping anything. It's like, hey, let me just give the body a little boost. Advil is actually going to vasoconstrict and not allow blood flow to get to the areas that we want to go. When you use something like a hypervolt or the Normatec boots, that's just going to help promote that blood flow and give the body a little bit more juice behind the processes that it's already doing to help the recovery.
Awesome. So coming back to the idea of microdosing recovery, is it safe to use the same method or modality every day? Is it safe to use a hypervolt or compression therapy every day? Would it be safe to do compression boots or massage every day? How often should you incorporate some of these methods into your routine? Is there a case of there being too much?
I think there's a case of like unnecessary, like it gets like if I'm doing Normatec boots every day, you don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. Is it going to cause you harm? Probably not. But if I can change it up, I love incorporate like helping people find mobility exercises that they can be doing just to like connect to their breath and still feel like they're moving. Maybe they struggle with taking a full rest, say like Casey was talking about earlier, like maybe I just want to microdose a 5 to 10 minute mobility that I just move in a way that like feels good to my body. And then the next day I might just want to like whip out my hypervolt, or the next day I want to really focus on my sleep. Okay, I'm going to prioritize my sleep. It's a Saturday night. I'm going to go to bed a little bit earlier. So that's how I view it. I don't think you can, with mobility, you can definitely do that 5 minutes a day and microdose that every single day and not have any repercussions and still have it be super effective because there's so many areas of the body. So that's the other thing is if I'm microdosing, I'm probably focusing on one area of the body, the next day another area, the next day another area. So like, yeah, am I going to hypervolt my entire body every single day? No. But if I have time to do my entire body, then it's not a microdose anymore. So, yeah.
So it's one or the other. There are a couple other major subjects that I'd like to get to before we start to wrap this up. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Bear with me. Kelley, I want to come back to you so that we can talk about nutrition, because this is, of course, a major component of a rounded fitness routine, wellness regimen. And I want to start by saying nutrition is majorly subjective in terms of individual macronutrient needs, how those needs pertain to your training goals, individual body composition. But maybe there are some general rules we can impart on our community. And so, Kelley, I want to ask you, I'm going to go pretty specific here just so we can dive into something that is a popular subject or a popular goal within the community, and that's body recomposition. Body recomposition is, of course, increasing muscle mass and lowering body fat. So my question is, how can we balance both eating enough to support muscle growth and recovery while also eating in a caloric deficit to lose body fat?
Sure. So I think that overall easiest way to look at it is you have two different types of days, right? So your training days, when you're training hard and we want to fuel ourselves for that muscle or for building muscle. And so on those days, you may need to up your carbohydrate intake, especially after your workout, replace those glycogen stores. And so on those days, we may increase our protein and increase our carbohydrates. On our more rest days where we're not necessarily exerting so much, those are the days that we could potentially pull back a little bit on, say, for instance, carbohydrates. And I think you're looking at it in two different types of days. Here's what we know. Skeletal muscle tissue is highly metabolically active. So the more muscle protein synthesis that we can achieve through strength training and recovery, but also through adequate quality protein intake, the higher amounts of metabolically active tissue that we're going to have. Our organs require a certain amount of metabolism just to function, but our muscle tissue can really up our metabolic rate. So increasing protein, I have really lofty protein goals for my patients. I talk a lot about, aiming upwards of like 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, especially for people who train. And finding, I think it's also kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, about finding something that works with your life, works with your schedule. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. If you just find the things that you like to work into your day that work for you. I eat protein all throughout the day, and I've kind of simplified my routine because I'm busy. I'm super, super busy. So I always have protein forward foods on hand. I keep them in my clinic, things at home, in my bag, in my car. One reason I love Gainful, they really simplified my nutrition routine because everything arrives in my mailbox once a month, a big box of everything I need for like my pre-workout, my creatine, which we haven't even gotten to creatine, which is another huge topic right now that I'm a big fan of, but everything kind of arrives at once. I think another thing sometimes people forget about is hydration, but hydration on a cellular level and pushing hydration into the cells where we need that relies on electrolytes. So just drinking free water sometimes isn't enough. We need to have potassium, magnesium, sodium, calcium, those like hydration packets or electrolyte packets once or twice a day to really push toward that intracellular hydration. So I think that's also part of getting to our goals, right? Being able to build muscle, burn fat, it has to all be really and holistic. All of those components have to be touched on. But protein intake, I do extra carbs on my heavy strength days, or when I'm going for a long run, because I'm training now for high rocks and I'm not a runner and this is new for me. So I've had to adjust my nutrition. And I'll do like a quick carb before my run and then make sure to get extra carbs after my run. And I think that's what you can do. Build more metabolically active tissue to enhance that metabolism.
Great. Hot tips in there. One of my approaches similar to yours is when I'm thinking about building my meals, I start with the protein. So I know that what source of protein I'm getting, and then I base my other macronutrients or micronutrients off of that. So starting with the protein is kind of key so that I'm not like reaching for, something that's not going to give me any source of protein. And I'm probably going to end up being hungry 30 minutes from then anyway. Hot tips from Kelley. You mentioned creatine and electrolytes. on a general basis, when are supplements needed? Like, we see so many supplements out there, many supplement brands. And I think I get a lot of questions from members in the community about, when should I be thinking about adding this into my routine? Do I need it? Is this going to give me more gains? What kind of is the general guideline there when you should be thinking about adding supplements into your routine?
Well, I personally think that everybody should take creatine. I mean, creatine is really an incredibly powerful molecule for not just muscle protein synthesis. We also see benefits for cognitive function and health, and then also that kind of what we call cellular ATP energy production. So, I mean, I think everyone should be on creatine. For my women or anyone starting off, I'll start low just to make sure you start low and go slow. So 3 to 5 grams a day, even every other day for a while, to build up. Creatine made a huge impact in my life, in my ability to put on muscle when I started using it really consistently a couple of years ago. That was when I had gotten introduced to Gainful, and made a huge difference in not just my recovery, but being able to build muscle. And then hydrate, I think you'd mentioned as part of this, like hydration packets, electrolyte packets, especially if you're training hard, having a heavy sweat, going in a sauna where you're sweating out a lot of those electrolytes, to replenish those is highly, highly effective. Other supplements, I mean, I don't know if you're referring to like protein shakes or I think those supplements are used as a matter of convenience, right? So if your day, I have a big protein shake in the morning, I add some extra things in there, like non-fat Greek yogurt, to get some calcium and vitamin D and more protein. And for me, it's because it's convenient. I'm busy. I've got to get out the door. So I make a big power shake in the morning where I have the creatine. I have collagen powder. I use a gut health supplement in there. And knowing that I'm getting like a lot of those nutrients in one setting that are there to fuel my body and help me recover. So that's how kind of I look at supplementation. Creatine is a must in my book.
Awesome. So you mentioned one of the benefits of creatine is that it bolsters cognitive health. And this is another big subject in and of itself. Casey, I'm coming to you for this one. You knew I would. I want to talk about emotional or mental health and its effect on recovery, and also how we might be able to influence that. Can you tell me, as a breathwork expert, can you tell me about down regulation breathing and why we should incorporate it into our recovery regimens?
Sure can. So it all comes back to your nervous system. And that's a buzzword. And let me backtrack a little bit, and I'll start with, there are down regulation forms of breathing, and there are more upregulatory forms. It's usually the upregulatory forms that you see on social media. So it's like the Wim Hof, the conscious connected stuff. It's the fast, heavy breathing, which does something to like literally like your blood chemistry, that does something to your brain. And that's why people feel something. And that's why it's trendy, because we do live in a world where people just want to feel something. But when it comes to not only recovery, but honestly, just like general regulation, I really encourage down regulatory breath patterns. So these are slower, more controlled like breath strategies that are lower. So they start like lower in your belly. The way I like to think of it is nose. So it's in and out through your nose, low in your belly, slow. So it's slow breathing, and smooth. Nose, low, slow, and smooth. And what this does is it literally stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's going to help you gain this general sense of like, I'm safe and I can be still, which is usually not the state that we tend to be in this modern world. We tend to be in a state of, I got to go from A to B, and, oh, this person's at this party and I'm not, and I got to get my workout in today, right? That's a very like sympathetic sort of like higher state of arousal. And your body's going to have a really hard time recovering when you're stuck in that state. No matter what you do, you can do all the things. You can do the red light, you can do the saunas, you can do all that stuff. But if you're stuck in a fight or flight, higher arousal state, it's going to have a direct impact on the way that your muscles and your joints and your tendons are able to recover. So down regulatory breathing, slow patterns of breath that tap into more of the parasympathetic state. I would love everybody to understand that it's not like a black or white, sympathetic or parasympathetic. There's like a really like nice continuum. And if we can just start to be sort of like agile along that continuum, then that's how you know that you're really starting to build better body awareness as an athlete. You're really starting to kind of like take control of the reins of your moods and your thoughts. And yeah, I feel like I had another thought there, Woods, but I could go on and on about this. So I don't want to take too much time, but nose, low, slow, and smooth is what I want everyone to remember.
No, that's a perfect takeaway. And actually a really good place for us to kind of wrap this up. I want to say that say we walk away from this tonal talk and we all want to make a more conscious effort at recovery. It still feels a little bit overwhelming and sometimes costly. So Julie, I want to quickly ask you, baseline, what would be an optimal recovery regimen from the moment I finish my workout, or maybe even before I begin my workout, to my next scheduled workout? What are the main pillars that I should think about hitting?
Oh, the main pillars. Wow. Okay. Well, I love what Casey was saying with the nose and the breathing. And one thing that I want people to also think about, which is really easy, which is nose is for breathing, mouth is for eating. And so the more that we can tap into just like nasal breathing is going to help put us into that recovery place. So that I always end my workouts with a little bit, I'm not sure if you guys do, but with a little bit of mobility and breathing that way really deeply. That's going to already take you out of this just higher state into the more lower parasympathetic state. So something to do with muscles and range of motion and breath right away. And then depending on how hard the workout is, that might dictate what mode that I take. So that same day, maybe I do want to get on top of the DOMs a little bit and do some of the more manual therapy type things. And always hydration. I think that is so key with preventing some soreness and helping with our recovery, which is also, like Kelley talked about, going to help with the sleep. But that's what I would do. I mean, before the workout, I'm going to slowly ramp up my heart rate and all of that. So slowly ramping up and then also slowly coming back down, giving your body some love with some mobility, some stretches right afterwards that incorporates the breath. And yeah, anything else? Those are my pillars. Ramp up, ramp down, muscles, give them some love, give them some food, give them some water. That's
perfect.
It.
That's perfect. Amazing. So I just want to wrap up with a few key takeaways that the three of you have imparted on us today with all of your amazing knowledge and big brains. We started with Casey. Baseline, rest is productive, everybody. And we know that this during rest and recovery is when the body is rebuilding. We need to rebuild in order to come back stronger. So recovery is essential. We knew this and now we know it even more. Down regulation breathing, an amazing place to start when recovery feels overwhelming. Sorry about the dogs. Nose, low, slow, and smooth. If you feel like anything else is overwhelming, finish your workout, get in the shower, do some nose, low, slow, and smooth breathing. Julia approaches recovery like she approaches her training. Limit friction. What can you commit to? Go from there. Micro dose recovery. I love that so much. And then Kelley, adaptation happens in all phases of life. We need to constantly be adapting and showing up for ourselves where we are. Body signals are going to help us figure out exactly what that looks like. A great place to start in recovery is also sleep hygiene. Set yourself up for a really good sleep routine. If everything else, again, feels overwhelming, you know that you have control over exactly what your sleep routine looks like 1 hour before you go to bed. How are you going to settle coming back to your nervous system? How are you going to settle your nervous system? How are you going to set yourself up for the coming day? And then, of course, nourishment and hydration. We know that we need to feed our bodies. We need to nourish our bodies. We need to stay hydrated so that we can feel good from the inside out. Amazing knowledge. Thank you all so much, Julia, Kelley, and Kristina, for joining me on today's Tonal Talk. This has been super informative and helpful. And I know that our members appreciate the knowledge you shared with us on all things recovery. So thank you to our community for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Coach Woody, and we'll see you soon for another Tonal Talk.